Well, I want to share with you a message that is based on John chapter 6. And those of us who are doing the 21 days of prayer have been following the book of John. Our pastor created this devotional. You know, one day we read a chapter of John, and John has 21 chapters, so it is perfect for these 21 days of prayer. So as I was reading the book of John and just asking God, what should I share? This is something that really blessed my life and challenged me, and also helped me a lot. It was a blessing to me. It's a word of God, a word that God put in my heart that I want to share with you. And it's John chapter 6, from 1 to 13. It says, Jesus climbed. I'm sorry, I'm going to go to this slide. We have two different monitors. After this, Jesus crossed over to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. Then Jesus climbed a hill and sat down with his disciples around him. It was nearly time for the Jewish Passover celebration. And Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked, "Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them." Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves of bread, barley loaves, and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd?" "Tell everyone to sit down," Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered about 5,000. And then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people. Afterwards, he did the same with the fish, and they all ate as much as they wanted. After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, "Now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted." So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. This is the first miracle, or the miracle that is mentioned, the first one that is mentioned, and the only one that is mentioned in all the 4 Gospels. This miracle, you find it in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in this passage that we're reading. And it has a very important and a special significance. Jesus wanted to let us know that he can meet all of our needs. He can meet every need. Even in the previous chapter, in chapter 5, Jesus was talking to the Samaritan woman, and he taught this woman and his disciples that he was the living water. That he is that living water, that when we drink the living water, him, we will never be thirsty again. And he taught that to the Samaritan woman. Of course, that had an impact on all that village, and of course his disciples. And here in chapter 6, Jesus also wanted to take an opportunity to teach the disciples another important lesson, that he is the living bread. That he can meet all of our needs, not just the physical needs, but also our deepest needs. Those needs that go beyond just water, physical water, and physical bread. Those needs like salvation and redemption, a second chance, mercy, grace, love, forgiveness. Everything that we need, we find it in him. And he wanted to take this opportunity to teach his disciples that he is the living bread. He meets all of our needs. And now, this is the first time that Jesus is performing a miracle of this magnitude. You're talking about 5,000 people. And the Bible says that it didn't count the women and children. So we can easily estimate that it was about maybe 10 to even 5,000 people, some commentaries estimate. Now, if it was my translation, or the Mexican translation, that would have been about 30,000 people, Because you got 5,000 men, and you're going to have all the little kids, and all. How many of you, you know what I'm talking about, right? in my family, we are, on my side of the family, we're a bunch. We're a lot. On my side of the family. On my wife's side of the family, there's just a few, right? Just a few. So my kids started noticing the difference when we start. When they got to the age of, wait a minute. When we go to Thanksgiving to our grandparents, everything is quiet. But when we go to that side of the family, it's noisy, it's rowdy. Everybody's talking, screaming at each other, and it looks like they're fighting, but they're not. We're just having a good time. That's the way we talk. So imagine this. 5,000 people. This is the first miracle that Jesus is performing of this magnitude. 5,000 people plus the women and children. That after this, they're going to become witnesses of what just happened there. The living water and the living bread. He can meet our needs. And now, he's getting ready to teach his disciples and all these people that he is more than enough. Jesus is more than enough. And that's what I want to talk to you about. He's more than enough. And we see in verses 5 and 6, it says Jesus saw a huge crowd and his purpose, so he wanted to go to the side of the mountain and just have like a chill time, with the disciples. They have been busy, ministering, and he went to the side of the mountain, and then all of a sudden, all of this crowd, all these people, thousands of people saw him and saw them, and they said, hey, they're going that way. So they went around the Sea of Galilee, and they got there first. So when Jesus and his disciples were there, they saw this huge crowd, and he saw them. And in other chapters, in other books, in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, it gives you more details of the story. And it says that Jesus saw them, and he had compassion over them. That he felt compassion over all these people, the crowd of people, a lot of people. So he turned to Philip, and he asked, where can we buy bread to feed all these people? And he was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Now, it is very interesting, and if you read the miracles of Jesus, that whenever Jesus is about to do a great miracle or something great, he starts with a question. He does that, often. With the blind Bartimaeus, he asked, what do you want me to do for you? I want to see, Lord, right? That's the answer. He asked that question before he performed that miracle of returning sight to blind Bartimaeus. To the man at the pool of Bethesda, the Pastor Tim talked about in the last message, he asked him the same, a question too. Not the same question, but he asked him a question. Do you want to get well? Do you want to get well? So in several times and occasions that Jesus is about to perform a miracle, something great, he starts with a question. And I believe it's because it's not the purpose, just the miracle. Of the purpose of Jesus is not, I'm going to show you a great miracle. But he wants us to, it's what he wants to do in us. It's not just to do something great, it's what he wants to do in our lives. And we sometimes ask when Jesus asks us, or we face something difficult or a seemingly impossible situation, and we're facing something difficult in our lives, we ask so many times the question, why, right? And I think Pastor Tim talked about that. We ask, why, Lord? Why am I going through this? Why is this happening? Why me? Why now? Why this way? Why not this other way? Why not later? So we ask why. I mean, that's a very human, question. A way to maybe the knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, why did this happen? But I think the better question that we need to ask is not why, but what. Whenever you and I face something difficult, and I've been learning this. I'm not saying this, oh, I'm a master of this, because I too ask, why? Oh, and then I remember, oh, Lord, I may not know why you're doing this, but show me what are you trying to do in my life? What are you doing in my life? What are you about to do in this situation or through this circumstance? And instead of asking why, we need to ask, all right, Lord, teach me, show me, I'm ready. My heart is open. My mind is receptive. I'm ready for what you're going to do through this situation. And if instead of asking why, we ask what. Because the purpose is not just the miracle, but what he wants to do in us. And when something seems impossible, it provides for a test to show his love, to stretch our faith, and to strengthen our hope. It wasn't that Jesus didn't know, where are we going to buy this, food for all these people. Imagine, Jesus, the all-knowing, the all-powerful God in flesh, asking Philip, oh man, pacing around, nervous, like, man, look at all these people. Where are we going to buy? Where are we going to buy all this food? And it's already late. It's already, the day was already fading away. In other versions say. And Jesus wasn't nervous. He wasn't, preoccupied of, oh man, if we let them go, what are they going to do? We don't have enough, of these. Now, back in those days, you got to remember, 5,000 people, not counting men and children. Imagine that many people going at night, trying to find a place to sleep or a place where they can eat. Back in those days, it was impossible. Jesus already knew, and the disciples already knew they're not going to find anything. Maybe some will, in some villages they're going to find something to eat, someone who will host them or lodge them. But all the thousands of people weren't going to find something. So Jesus wasn't worried. He wasn't asking Philip, well, I guess I took a little bit more time than I should have, preaching to the masses. I'm kind of long-winded, and Jesus, you kind of preach long today, and look, now we're stuck with all these people, right? And he wasn't worried about it. He didn't ask him because he didn't know. You think about it, why did Jesus ask that question? And the Bible says he didn't ask that because he didn't know he didn't know what to do. He already knew what he was going to do. He was asking that to stretch Philip's faith, to impress on him, hey, apart from me, you can do nothing. Right now, we have a big challenge, a big problem. And you think that this is something impossible to do, but I'm going to show you that I am more than enough. I am more than enough. Jesus loves impossible circumstances because he already knows what he's going to do. He already knows what he's going to do in your life, in your situation. You may be facing something that you think, how are we going to do it? What am I going to do? Yes, Jesus, I know you're asking me, hey, where are we going to buy all this? Where are we going to go to solve this situation? But he is asking Philip, because he wants him to know, hey, I am more than enough. I am more than enough. I already know what I'm going to do. So this is something that it ought to give us comfort and hope that Jesus knows whatever your situation is, you got to remember, he already knows what he's going to do. I may not know how it's going to work. I may not know how everything's going to unfold. I may not know what college I'm going to and who am I going to marry and what profession, what career, what am I going to do, how are my children going to turn out, or how is my marriage going to be, in 5-10 years, or all of those questions that we ask. How is, I may not know, what my job is going to look like in 5, 10, 15 years, but I know one thing. He already knows. He already knows what he's going to do. So that gives me at least that sense of, I can trust him. A hope stretches our faith. Verse 7, it says, Philip replied, even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed him. In the other books that they talk about this story, it says that Philip said, even if we worked for more than half a year's worth of wages, even if we work more than that, more than 200 days, so if we get more than 200, days worth of a laborer's wages, it's not going to be enough to even give him a bite. So Philip says, hey, Jesus, you asked me where we're going to buy all this food? And then Philip, instead of replying or answering with, an answer maybe close to what Jesus was asking, where? Well, maybe they can go here to this village. I know that there are some little towns around here, or maybe on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. There may be some places, He didn't say any of that. He just said, even if we work for months, it's not going to be enough to feed them. So what Philip was doing is that he was measuring a big problem based on his own abilities. He looked at the situation, and then he looked at what he had, at his ability, at his resources, at what he had, and he concluded, we're not going to make it. We can't make it. We're not going to do it. It's impossible. Because Philip was focusing on what he didn't have. He said, even if we worked, all this time, it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. So he was basing, that he was measuring or sizing that problem based on what he had or what he could do. And isn't that what we do a lot of the times? We look at the situation and we say, oh, wow, well, I kind of measure it and, size it up. And then I say, okay, this is a big problem. This is a big challenge. And then what we do, instead of turning to look or answer, the question that Jesus asked, we look at our abilities, our resources, at what we can do. And that's when we realize, can't do it. Can't do it. How am I going to pay for college? Look at, what this university costs. Look what my parents make. Big problem. How am I going to be able to do this? How am I going to be able to afford this month's rent? How am I going to be able to accomplish this? Or how am I going to be able to solve this? Look at the problem that my family is going through. And look at what we have. Look at what we know. Look at where we are. We can't do it. It's not enough. Because we base that on our abilities, our resources. And those are always going to be limited. If we measure based on our abilities, we will limit ourselves to small things in life. Isn't that interesting that if we try to tackle or to solve or to face all of those challenges and problems in life based on what we have, we're always going to be limiting ourselves to what we can do, instead of letting God do what only He can do. Think about it. If you limit yourself to your own resources, your own strength, your own ideas, your own ways, you're going to be limited to that, because we're basing it on our own strength. But we want to go beyond that. That's when we realize again, Jesus, you're more than enough. Jesus asked Philip, where will we go? But Philip answered with a calculation, with a limited calculation. And I relate a lot with to Philip, because, they were there looking at all the crowd and the challenge. The problem was, wow, how are we going to feed him? Jesus told them, hey, don't let them go. They're going to faint, or it's going to be dangerous. It's already late. They're not going to find food. You give him something to eat. And then Jesus asked him, where are we going to get all, the food for all these people to feed them? And I relate a lot to Philip, because instead of answering, like I mentioned, answering the question, or maybe even something related to that question, he started making those calculations. Imagine, Jesus right here, Philip, and they're looking, by the side of the mountain, and they're looking at 5,000 men with women and children. And then Jesus asked you, hey, any stores that we can buy any food for all these people? Even if we worked a lot, it wouldn't be enough for this. And then I imagine Philip sitting right there, calculating in his mind, okay, we have 200 here, 100 over here. We have about 500 over there. man, there's like 5,000 men, and I see women and children. Man, this is a lot. So he started making calculations. That's why he responded. Not even, if we worked for months, not even more than half a year's wages would be enough for that. So he was already calculating, okay, 1 denarius is 1 day worth of a laborer's wage. So if I work, this many, and I work more, Jesus, it's not going to be enough. And that's a lot of what we do. We look at the situation and we start calculating in our minds. We start figuring out how we're going to do it. We start figuring out a way of how we can handle this on our own. We look at the situation in your marriage. Look, my husband is like this. He does this. He doesn't do that. And then the husband is like, well, my wife, I wish, she could be like this or she could do more of that. And then you say, no, I already know, that, she's not going to change. And then, oh, yeah, he's stuck in his ways, he's not going to change. And then we start calculating, how am I going to be able to do this? Well, we could go to counseling. We can go, do this. I can try even to maybe, bribe him or, do something for him. And then you start thinking a lot of those, your own ways of trying to solve a situation, but in your own way. We do that a lot. How am I going to be able to pay for this? I have this, and that. God, this is impossible. How am I going to be able to do that? And we calculate in our minds. We try to find a way to do it on our own, and we feel trapped. We feel like we're stuck, that we can't find a solution or an answer. And that's why Philip was calculating in his mind. And he came to the realization, man, even if we work a lot, even if we try to do all of this, I already made the numbers. I run the figures in my head. Jesus can't do it. He can't do it. We can't do it. And we do that a lot. We try to figure it out in our minds. I can handle this. I can handle it, right? We say, no, I got it. I got it, the typical answer. No, I got this. I got this. And we want to manage this. No, I got this. I don't need to go CR. Why should I go? I don't need that. I can handle this. Just a little bit is not going to hurt me. I know what I can do. I know what I'm capable of doing. I know when to stop. But the reality is, in our own strength, we can't do it. Because if you can do it, you would have done it a long time ago. You would have done it a long time ago. So he calculated in his mind, ran the numbers, and came up short. Can't do it, Jesus. Then, in verses 8 and 9, then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that with this huge crowd? And that one really, caught my attention. But in a way that I said, wow, what an answer. What a way to answer, or to immediately, say something before he even asked Jesus something. Hey, what can you do? He said, hey, we have here, 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that? Now, Andrew would have been a hero of faith. He would have been considered a great man of faith if he would have stopped at the first part of his sentence. He would have been looked as a, wow, great man of faith. There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Stop right there, Andrew. Stop right there. But maybe it was like in their family, running their blood, like Peter, always speaking up and always, very, that always like kind of running ahead of themselves. And if he would have stopped right there, it would have been great. Wow, great declaration of faith. Andrew, here's something that we can do. But he went on. But what good is that for, all of this? But what good is that? So he didn't stop and say, hey, this is something we have. At least it's something. But he said, but what good is that? What is that going to do to, all of this? Look at all the need that we have, and look what we have. So, the lesson here that I see is that when you have little and you put it in Jesus' hands, it becomes much. And you've heard this a lot. You probably heard it or maybe see it on an Instagram post, right? You know, your little is a lot or whatever it is, you know, and with a nice, you know, background or whatever, you know, a picture. But it is true. When you have little, but you put it in Jesus' hands, it's not little anymore. It becomes much. It becomes a lot. And just because you have a little, it doesn't mean it's not significant or useful. Think about it. How many times we underestimate the little that we have? Oh, you know, it's just that. What good is that going to do for, you know, all of this? It's just this. But we do it all the time. We forget that, yeah, it may be little, but when you put it in Jesus' hands, he can turn that little into something even more than enough. More than enough. And sometimes we underestimate. We don't value. We just look down on the little instead of taking it. You don't live in denial like, oh yeah, you know, my little, yeah, it's a lot, you know, and yeah, this is great. No, I know it may not be much, but when I put it in Jesus' hands, he can do more than what I can do with my little. And when I think this is insignificant and of no value or much value, when you put it in Jesus' hands, it becomes significant and of great value. He can do something great. He can do something great. So, what is your gift? What are your 5 loaves and your 2 fish? Think about it. You may have something that is, you know, maybe little. And you think, well, I don't know what that can do. I don't know what that can accomplish. In our own strengths, it may not do much. But when you put it in Jesus' hands, God can do a lot more. And you'll be surprised. What you thought it was not useful, not significant, not of value. I only have this. And we do this. You know, if I only, you know, we looked at what we have and we think it's not very, you know, significant. Look at the job I have. You know, if I only had a different job, then I could do something different. If I had a different house, man, I would be so much happier, you know. Life would be great, you know, if I had a different house. If I had a different husband, oh, man, life would be awesome, right? If I had a different family, oh, if I didn't live in this family, you know, everybody else is having a great time and they have a better families than I do, but I'm stuck with this. Look at what I have. If I had more money, if I had more time, if I had more time to go to church or to invest in this or to participate in that, if I only had more time, if I had more support from my family, you know, but man, I don't get that from home. I only got this. But when we learn to take that and say, Lord, this is all I have. This is all I have. We realize and say, wow, what I thought it was insignificant, it becomes significant in his hands. And just because it's little, it doesn't mean it doesn't have importance or value. It's significant because it's in Jesus' hands. Now in verses 10 and 11, it says, tell everyone to sit down, Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people. Afterward, he did the same with the fish, and they all ate as much as they wanted. Jesus blessed something that was not enough. There's Andrew. Hey, Jesus, no, here's a boy. He has 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Great, but he went on and said, but what good is that? But what good is that? That's not going to even work for Peter. I mean, Peter eats all of that and more. I mean, he needs a lot more than that. Imagine all of these 5,000 men and then the rest of the people, and women and children. What good is that? How is that going to make even a dent in the need and the challenge that we have in front of us? How is that going to work? It's not going to work. But Jesus, look at Jesus. It's incredible, amazing, the attitude and the reaction of Jesus, what he does. Instead of saying, yeah, you're right, Andrew, yeah, it's not enough. I mean, what is that going to do? A Long John Silver's combo number 2. I mean, what is that going to work? That's not going to work. It's just a little bit. That little, sardines and crackers. What is that going to do here? Jesus didn't do that. He took it. And for us, it's important to highlight that, because sometimes we feel this, Jesus, I know it's a little, and then we feel like kind of embarrassed, to come and say, but only have this, Jesus, and thinking he might even reject it. He might not even going to use it. He might discard what I'm bringing. He might say, I don't need that. I mean, bring me something better, right? Don't you have something better than that? And we feel kind of ashamed of bringing something like that, even when it's little, to him. But Jesus says, I receive it. He takes it. He takes it. And Jesus blessed something that was not enough. He blesses something that was not enough. So you're not enough. What you have and you think is not enough, you take it to Jesus, and he takes it. And when you think it's not even worthy of attention, of his blessing, he takes it and says, yes. I know it's little. I know it may be insignificant. I know you may think it's not of much value or useful, but I'm going to take it. And I'm going to bless your not enough in your life. What is it that you think is not good enough or enough? Take it. And instead of feeling like, well, I don't know if he's even worthy to bring it, in front of, yes, bring it, and Jesus takes it. He's never going to reject you. He's not going to say, no, I need something better. You need to, go back and work, on that. And when you get a little better, come back and, maybe present something a little bit more useful. He doesn't do that. He says, bring it. I take it, and I bless it, even when it's not enough. When you're grateful for what's not enough, God multiplies it into more than enough. And how many times, instead of thanking God and being grateful for what we have, we complain about what we don't have. And we complain about what we have and say, you know what, this is not good. And we start, being ungrateful or even not being appreciative of what we already have. I learned that a long time ago, the hard way. I had a car in college. It wasn't a new car. It was just a car that would go, And I started comparing it and saying, all my friends and my classmates, man, they have great cars, and they have some new ones, and they have some really sporty ones. And then mine was a Tempo 1994, right? I barely would run. And I started, noticing in my heart that I was saying, man, this car, right? What good is that? Maybe I need something better. But then I noticed that my heart was becoming, a little jealous, envious. Always wanted to have, think that the grass is greener on the other side. And I remember, hey, be grateful for what you have. Be grateful for what you have. It may be that old 1994 Tempo, but it goes from point A to point B. And it does the same thing as a Mercedes. It's going to take you from point A to point B. And at this time, you're grateful for this. And guess what happened? I started looking at this car as the nicest car of all the parking lot in college. I was like, man, thank you, God, for that Tempo. It's gray and it's, it runs. It doesn't leave me stranded. Thank you for it. Thank you for it. And do the same thing in your family. You may have, in your family, you may have reasons to complain about. But instead of that, you say, you know what? I thank you for my children. They run around, and sometimes they don't listen to me because, they're a little hard-headed. But I thank you for their life. Instead of saying, oh, this kid, you never listen. And then you start complaining you say, Lord, thank you for my child. Thank you because he's a blessing. And sometimes we complain about what we don't have. When God said, hey, when you're grateful for what you have, instead of complaining about it, I can multiply that. I can multiply it. Because Jesus did that. He took the loaves and the fish, and he gave thanks. Be grateful for what you have instead of complaining about what you don't have. And then, let me see aquí. In verses 12 and 13, the last part, it says, after everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted. So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. The 12 baskets were a reminder to the disciples that Jesus was more than enough. Imagine, Jesus didn't overcook, God wasn't like, oh man, I think I made more than I needed, right? He didn't say, oops, I think I kind of went overboard with the fish, with this fish fry that we're having out here. If God wanted to be precise, if God wanted to be exact in the amount of food that he needed for the 5,000 and the women and the children, he could have done it that way. Think about it. Why were there leftovers? Why did they have, scraps? If God is not a God who wastes anything, God is not a wasteful God. Did he miscalculate the ingredients? How many loaves and how many fish they needed for all these people? I don't think so. You think about it. If he wanted to have or make a miracle so that everyone had a plate full of food, that meal, he could have done it exactly. And I think it would have been awesome. So, wow, everyone had their fill. And when they would have gotten to the last person, it's like, wow, exactly what we needed. That's amazing, God. He could have done it that way. But he didn't do it. And it wasn't because he overcooked or he made more and he said, wow, I think I put a lot more of that, a little bit more of that. No, it was that he had a purpose for that. He asked his disciples, hey, get to work. Pick up all the leftovers. Pick them up. That nothing is wasted. Because it wasn't that I made a mistake and I did more than we needed. It's because I wanted to show you that I'm more than enough. That I'm more than enough. And when you think that what you have is insignificant, maybe not useful, maybe they're not that important, you put it in my hands. I receive it. I bless it. And I show you this is more than enough. And when you think in your life you have something that is not sufficient, you realize Jesus is all you need. He's your sufficiency. My grace is sufficient for you in whatever you go through. So I want to invite you to close your eyes as we dismiss. What are those gifts and what are the 5 loaves and the 2 fish that you already have? What is it that you have in your hands? Jesus, before he was going to do something great, often he asked that question, where are we going to go to get food for all these people? But he's asking that of you and me Not because he doesn't know. He already knows what he's going to do in your life and in my life. He's asking us that so we can stretch our faith and realize, God, you're more than enough in my life. So these talents, these gifts, what I have, this family, this job, this house, all of these things, my life, my gifts and talents, sometimes I think that they're not that much or that important or that useful. But now I want to take him and put him in your hands so you can make him and multiply him into much. So Lord, help me. Help me to clarify what are those gifts. And once you do that, I want to put them in your hands. Because I want to see that you are more than enough in my life. So I want to ask you to do an inventory of your life. What are the gifts and the talents? What are your 5 loaves and the 2 fish that you already have? And say, Lord, this is what I have. I've complained maybe about it and said, it's not enough. What good is that going to do for all of this need, for this big need that I have in front of me? Maybe I haven't appreciated it. I have underestimated it. Maybe I haven't seen the value in it. Maybe I complain about it. I whined about it. Maybe I've been jealous about other people's gifts and talents or what they have. I've been jealous of the 2 fish and the 5 loaves that they have. But Father, help me to be grateful for what I have. And take that and put it in your hands. Give it to you. And help me to stretch my faith and realize that you're more than enough. That you can do more than what I can do in my own strength, my own abilities, with my own resources. When I try to figure things out on my own, you can do more than that. Your ways are higher. Your ways are better. Help me, God. I want to put all of those in your hands. And I pray that you help me be grateful so you can bless what is not enough in my life, so you multiply it into something much. Whatever that is in my family, in my life, my work, at my house, with the people around me. Father, I bring them to you because you're more than enough. You're more than enough for me, for my family, in whatever situation. Help me to trust you. In Jesus' name, amen. Why don't we give the Lord a hand and say, thank you, Lord. Teach us to be grateful. Teach us to be thankful for what you already given us. You are more than enough. You're more than enough.